There are dream cars, and then there are unicorns, the kind that automakers conjure up after a long lunch involving 3 martinis and a reckless disregard for production feasibility. The kind of car that rolls onto the stage at an auto show, looking impossibly sleek, impossibly futuristic, and absolutely destined to never ever see a dealership lot. And among these magnificent flights of fancy, few were as bold or as doomed as the 1955 Chevrolet Biscayne. This was not some pedestrian family sedan. This was a rolling showcase of what Chevrolet was capable of when unshackled from boring things like budgets, practicality, or the basic need for a car to survive the crushing realities of mass production. It was a jet age fever dream of chrome, swooping lines, and a then revolutionary small block V8. And then, just as quickly as it had arrived, it was unceremoniously dumped in a junkyard, hacked to pieces, and left to rot. But, unlike most show cars, which meet the business end of a crusher and vanish into history, the Biscayne defied all odds. Against all logic, it survived, just barely, and thanks to one man's sheer stubbornness, it was resurrected decades later. But let's go a little bit more in depth on the car's history. So, the 1950s were a wild time for American car design. This was the golden era of automotive excess, when designers were seemingly instructed to take inspiration from rocket ships, science fiction, and whatever gave Harley Earl an adrenaline rush that day. And in 1955, Chevrolet had something truly special to unveil: its brand new 265 cubic inch small block V8. It was a technological marvel, a push-rod powerhouse that would go on to become the stuff of legend. But Chevrolet knew that simply shoving this engine into a car and plonking it on a stand wouldn't do. No, it needed to be introduced with appropriate levels of spectacle, and that is where the Biscayne came in. Now, the Biscayne was Chevrolet's way of saying, look at what we can do. Designed under the guidance of 28-year-old Chuck Jordan, who was rapidly climbing the ranks under the great Harley Earl. It was a sleek, low-slung four-door sports sedan that looked like it had been beamed in from the future. It sat on a 115-inch wheelbase, but its flowing lines and pillarless design made it appear almost impossibly sleek. Finished in a deep metallic green with enough chrome to blind onlookers, it was the sort of car that made everything else on the road look like it had been built in the Stone Age. Underneath that jet age bodywork sat the real star of the show, a 215 horsepower version of Chevrolet's brand new small block V8. And while 215 horsepower might not seem earth-shattering today, back in 1955, this was an engine that meant business. Paired with a Powerglide automatic transmission, it wasn't just about straight-line speed. It was about smooth, effortless power delivery, the kind that made you feel like you were piloting a high-speed luxury cruiser rather than just another family sedan. But the Biscayne wasn't just a mechanical showcase, it was a styling tour de force. In a decade already obsessed with pushing boundaries, it still managed to look futuristic. The front end was particularly daring. I say daring because it's not what I would call pretty. Maybe you feel different. But the car's real innovation laid in the Biscayne's roofline. It featured a dramatic wraparound windshield, dubbed the stratospheric windshield, which seamlessly merged into the roof. Visibility was unparalleled, and it gave the car a light, airy feel completely at odds with the usual tank-like designs of the era. Chevrolet must have known they were onto something, because this feature later found its way onto the production 1959 Impala. Then there were the doors. The Biscayne featured a pillarless design with rear suicide doors, making entry and exit effortless, and turning the car into something that looked less like a sedan and more like a concept sketch brought to life. The interior was equally radical, featuring 4 bucket seats with swiveling front seats and center console mounted ashtrays with built-in lighters. Because in 1955, a car wasn't truly luxurious unless every seat had the ability to ignite a cigarette at will. Now, when the Biscayne debuted at the 1955 GM Motorama, it was an instant hit. The public was mesmerized by its futuristic looks and the promise of V8 power. Everybody desperately wanted one, but of course they couldn't, as concept cars aren't built to last, and the Biscayne was never intended to go into production. It was merely an extravagant showcase, a visual symphony meant to generate headlines before being quietly retired. And retire it did, in the worst way possible. You see, like so many dream cars of the era, the Biscayne's fate was grim. After its show duties were over, Chevrolet deemed it surplus to requirements and sent it off to the War Hoops junkyard in Michigan, a place notorious for being the final resting place of GM's concept cars. The once glorious Biscayne was unceremoniously chopped into pieces, its elegant fiberglass bodywork left to decay among this discarded metal and automotive relics. And there it sat, forgotten. This is where the story takes a turn though. Enter Joe Bortz, a car collector with an obsession for rescuing lost dream cars. Bortz had a knack for tracking down the remains of long-lost concepts. In 1990, after years of searching, he finally found what was left of the Biscayne. It wasn't pretty. The car had been sliced apart, its chassis ruined, and many of its original parts lost to time. But the fiberglass body had somehow survived, and with it, the opportunity to bring the Biscayne back from the dead. Now the restoration was nothing short of monumental, with help from GM, which miraculously still had the original blueprints. Bortz and his team set about painstakingly rebuilding the car. The chassis had to be recreated from scratch. Missing components had to be re-engineered, and every detail had to be meticulously restored to its original 1955 specification. It took 2 decades. Yes, 2 whole decades. But in 2010, the Biscayne was finally complete, and it was glorious. Today, the 1955 Chevrolet Biscayne shines as bright as it did at the Motorama nearly 70 years ago. It makes regular appearances at prestigious car shows and museums, including the Peterson Automotive Museum, where it continues to capture the imaginations of car enthusiasts who marvel at its radical design and remarkable resurrection. Had it not been for a stroke of luck and Bortz's determination, the Biscayne would have been lost forever, joining the ranks of concept cars that exist only in grainy photographs. Instead, it stands as a stunning reminder of a time when automakers weren't afraid to dream big, push boundaries, and occasionally build something utterly bonkers, just for the sheer fun of it. But at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of the video and what you guys think of this car. As I said earlier, the styling isn't exactly my cup of tea, but the story is pretty cool, and that's why I made a video on it. But let me know what you guys think of the car. If you guys enjoyed this video, please have a like and subscribe to the channel, and if you guys did like it, you must really enjoy most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if it's something else you like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers,